They worked in isolation, threatened by death if anyone ever knew what they were doing. They toiled in secret, racing against time and death itself. They were the Codebreakers of Bletchley Park, and they just might have changed the course of human history. Now, if you've heard about them before, you might already know some of the big things they did, like cracking the infamous Enigma code. But there is so many more incredible stories that most people don't know. Here are 5 of the most shocking facts about Turing's Codebreakers that you won't believe. Now, 1. They took on the unbreakable. Ever heard of Enigma? It was a German machine that encrypted and sent secret messages during World War II. This thing was a nightmare, capable of generating billions of letter combinations every second. Today, we'd call it a pretty advanced cipher. To put it simply, the Germans thought it was unbreakable. That is until the British codebreakers stepped in. Our story starts with a Polish guy named Jerzy Roman, a mathematician who realized the encryption method used by Germany had some weak spots. He went to the UK and told them all about it. Soon after, Alan Turing, one of the best mathematicians in the game, joined the effort. They worked together to develop ways to crack the code. The Poles were thrilled and felt confident that the Brits would take care of the rest. But when they left, the British found themselves up a creek without a paddle. They needed a machine that could quickly run through all those possible code combinations and decrypt the messages. It was a daunting task, but someone was up for the challenge. Meet Alan Turing. In just a couple of weeks, he came up with a plan to break the Enigma code. First, they needed to get hold of an Enigma machine themselves. So a few brave individuals risked their lives to steal one from the Germans. Now, having a machine wasn't enough. They needed someone who could design another machine, one that could mimic the Enigma and test out all its possible settings. Enter the bombes. These machines didn't look like your typical computers, but they sure acted like them. They were programmed to test thousands of possibilities, eliminating incorrect ones at lightning speed. In a matter of hours, they could go through more combinations than a human could in a lifetime. When the first Bombe was complete, it was like nothing the world had ever seen. It looked like an enormous typewriter, filled with gears and lights blinking away like a Christmas tree on steroids. The next step was to capture a message and feed it into the Bombe. Then the magic happened. The machine started whirring and clicking, running through countless combinations. And suddenly, eureka, the decoded message appeared. The team had done it. They'd broken the Enigma code, but they were just getting warmed up. Number 2. Thousands of careers were made and lost here. Imagine you're a top secret spy, working on one of the most important missions of your life. You're surrounded by brilliant minds, working tirelessly to keep your country safe. But then your mission is over. What happens next? Do you return to your normal life, knowing that you've saved countless lives? Or do you struggle to find a new purpose, feeling lost and alone? For many of the workers at Bletchley Park, this was a harsh reality. Their work was so classified that they couldn't even tell their family what they were doing. Even after the war ended, they were sworn to secrecy for decades. It wasn't until the 1970s that the work done at Bletchley Park was finally declassified. By then, many of the people who had worked there had moved on to other jobs or retired, and so the true extent of the work done there was kept secret for generations. But that doesn't mean that the work didn't have an impact. Many of the people who worked at Bletchley Park went on to have successful careers in fields such as computer science, mathematics, and engineering. Some of them even went on to become famous in their own right, like Tommy Flowers, who was responsible for building the Colossus, one of the earliest programmable computers. Others, however, weren't so lucky. After the war ended, many of the workers at Bletchley Park struggled to find new jobs because their skills were no longer in demand. Some turned to alcohol or other drugs to cope with the sudden loss of purpose in their lives. Others simply gave up and died young. It's a sad part of history that often gets overlooked. But it is important to remember that the work done at Bletchley Park wasn't just about cracking codes. It was about the people who did the work, their lives, their struggles, and their triumphs. No. 3. A Swiss army of female code breakers. often overlooked in military operations are the vital contributions of women. At Bletchley Park, however, women weren't just present, they were essential. Among them was a remarkable woman named Joan Clark. She defied societal norms by becoming one of the few female codebreakers at Bletchley Park. When she applied to join the team, she faced skepticism and discrimination, but her brilliance and determination paved the way for her and other women to contribute to breaking some of the most complex codes of the era. Her journey serves as an inspiration to aspiring codebreakers around the world. She demonstrated that gender should never be a barrier to pursuing one's dreams, and that women can excel in any field they choose. But Clark wasn't the only trailblazer at Bletchley Park. Women made up half of the workforce there, and they tackled tasks ranging from breaking codes to operating machines. They analyzed massive amounts of intercepted messages looking for patterns and anomalies that could provide valuable intelligence. They worked long and irregular hours, often under conditions that were cramped and uncomfortable. But they persevered, driven by their sense of duty and their desire to contribute to the war effort. The contributions of these female code breakers were vital to the success of Bletchley Park's mission. They helped to break some of the most important codes of the war, including those used by the Germans to encrypt their communications. Their work helped to shorten the war and save countless lives. Despite their vital contributions, these women were often overlooked and their stories were kept secret for decades. But their legacy lives on, inspiring future generations of code breakers to push the boundaries of what's possible. Number 4. They had to stay ahead of the enemy. It was a race against time. As the war raged on, the Germans grew wise to the fact that their codes were being broken and they began to make changes. The once predictable sequences were now shifting and evolving, making the task of code breaking more difficult than ever. It was a cat and mouse game, and the stakes were higher than ever. Every day that the code breakers were behind the enemy was another day that intelligence officers were flying blind, unable to anticipate the enemy's moves. The pressure was immense and the stakes were high, but the code breakers were up for the challenge. They worked tirelessly, fueled by a sense of duty and a desire to stay one step ahead of the enemy. Using their wits and their knowledge of mathematics, they developed new techniques and strategies for breaking the codes. They worked around the clock, often putting in 16-hour days. They slept in their offices and ate at their desks. There was no time for rest when the fate of the war hung in the balance. In the end, their hard work paid off. They managed to stay one step ahead of the Germans, and their efforts played a crucial role in the Allied victory. Note 5. They probably saved millions of lives. Historians agree that the work done by the codebreakers at Bletchley Park may have shortened the war by 2 years. That means thousands, maybe even millions of lives were saved. It's hard to overstate the impact that their work had on the outcome of the war. For example, by breaking the Enigma code, the British were able to track the movements of German U-boats, which allowed them to protect merchant ships carrying vital supplies across the Atlantic. This, in turn, helped to keep the supply lines open and the factories producing the weapons and ammunition needed to win the war. But the codebreakers didn't just help to save lives on the battlefield. They also played a key role in the D-Day landings. By breaking the German codes, the Allies were able to learn about the defenses that the Germans had put in place. This information was used to plan the D-Day landings, which ultimately led to the liberation of Western Europe from the Nazis. Despite their crucial contributions, the codebreakers remained humble. They knew that their work was dangerous and that they were risking their lives every day. They were just doing their job and they didn't need recognition or praise. So the next time you hear about the D-Day landings or the end of World War II, take a moment to remember the codebreakers at Bletchley Park. They may not have been household names, but they were heroes nonetheless. And if you want to learn more about these unsung heroes, make sure to hit subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.